Grigory Rasputin, one of the most mysterious people in the history of Russia, was born in 1869 in the small village of Pokrovskoye in the Tyumen region. He was called a saint, a miracle worker, a sorcerer, and even a devil in human form. His family was poor, like most peasants of that time. As a child, he herded cattle, helped with household chores, and did not go to school. He learned to write and read only as an adult. But ever since he was a child, there were strange rumors surrounding him. People said that he had a gift. He could predict the future and heal the sick. Once a horse in the village suddenly fell ill, and the locals were about to slaughter it. But Grigory came up, whispered something in the ear of the animal, and in a couple of hours it fully recovered. After this case, he began to come to him peasants with requests for help. Many believe that Rasputin was a monk, but this is not true. He never took monastic tonsure and did not belong to the church. However, in his youth, he did go on a pilgrimage to the monasteries of Russia and even visited Mount Athos in Greece, one of the main spiritual centers of Orthodoxy. It was then that he developed an unusual appearance: long hair, a thick beard, and strict black clothes. But the most amazing thing is his influence on people. Eyewitnesses said that when talking to him, they seemed to fall into a trance. Some women fainted and men began to do what he said. This gave rise to rumors that he has a hypnotic gift or even the ability to read minds. Rasputin quickly realized that his gift could open him up to the high society. In the early 20th century, among the aristocrats was popular fashion for mysticism. Spiritistic seances, fortune-telling, and miracle workers were in trend. Rich people were looking for enlightenment, and Rasputin fit perfectly into this environment. In 1903, he came to St. Petersburg, and literally in a few years he became a famous personality. He was invited to the houses of nobility. He got acquainted with influential people. Many considered him a holy man, and women from high society idolized him for his spiritual guidance. But the main acquaintance that changed his life was a meeting with the royal family. Rasputin was an ordinary peasant, had no education, did not serve in the church, but managed to penetrate into the most closed family of the Russian Empire, the family of Tsar Nicholas II. The main reason why Rasputin ended up at court was Tsarevich Alexei. The only son of Nicholas II suffered from hemophilia, a severe disease because of which his blood did not clot. Any scratch could be fatal, and doctors could do nothing. In 1907, Alexei suffered a serious injury: internal bleeding. Doctors were in a panic. Medicines did not help. The Tsarevich was fading away. At this point, one of the court ladies offered to call Rasputin. He was already rumored as a man with miraculous abilities. Rasputin came to the Tsarevich, prayed for a long time, and said that the boy will recover. And suddenly, Alexei's condition really improved. Bleeding stopped and he went on the mend. The doctors could not explain how this happened. From that moment, the Empress Alexandra Feodorovna was sure Rasputin saved her son, which means that he, a messenger of God. Later, after one of the Tsarevich's attacks, Rasputin wrote a letter to the Empress in which he predicted, "The boy will live as long as I live." After this incident, Rasputin became the Empress's personal advisor. He could come to the royal palace at any time, met with Nicholas II, and even intervened in politics. The Empress trusted him so much that she did not make any important decisions without his approval. Even when the ministers complained about him, the Tsar said, "If it makes his wife feel better, let him be there." Rasputin enjoyed this trust. He did not just live at court. He began to give advice on the management of the country, appoint people to high positions, and dismiss ministers. But how could he heal without medicine? There is no official evidence that Rasputin actually treated people, but there are several theories as to why his presence helped the Tsarevich. The first, psychology. The Tsarevich may have suffered not only physically, but also psychologically. When he had someone he believed in around him, he felt better. The second theory, hypnosis. There were rumors that Rasputin could put people in a trance, reducing their level of pain and anxiety. And the third theory, drug prohibition. Before one of Alexei's seizures, Rasputin told the doctors not to give the boy any medication. Later, it turned out that the doctors often used aspirin, and it thins the blood, which in hemophilia only worsens the condition. What happened next? Rasputin gained incredible influence, but it made him the main enemy of the Russian nobility. The aristocrats considered him a passerby because he had no title or education, but at the same time commanded the royal family. He was hated but feared. Too much he knew and too much control. But Rasputin really helped people. He healed the sick, gave money to the poor, and defended those who were unjustly persecuted by the authorities. It is said that he could relieve pain with a single touch and predict the future. But behind his sainthood, there was something strange. In St. Petersburg, he organized so-called spiritual parties. These were meetings at which Rasputin read prayers, sang, but then began a real binge. Dancing, alcohol, and strange rituals. Many aristocrats considered him a saint and literally fell to their knees before him. Some were convinced that he could purify the soul through sinful acts. Critics said he simply enjoyed the trust of the royal family. Allegedly, he did not heal the Tsarevich, but simply removed medications that worsened his condition and then passed off the improvement as a miracle. When during the First World War, Nicholas II went to the front, the country was actually ruled by his wife, Empress Alexandra Fyodorovna. And here began the most interesting thing. She did not make a single decision without the advice of Rasputin. It turns out, Rasputin actually ruled Russia. The nobility believed that he hypnotized the empress to keep her under control. Some argued that Rasputin, she literally zombified. On his advice, ministers were dismissed and replaced by people he recommended. Some were so incompetent that they led the country to disaster. This caused hatred of Rasputin among the nobility and the military. But was his death an accident, or did someone deliberately remove him before the collapse of the empire? Rasputin knew that he was going to be killed. He talked about it out loud and even predicted his death. In one of his letters to the Tsar, he wrote, "If I am killed by the nobility, your family will not survive 2 years." The prediction turned out to be eerily accurate. 2 years later, Nicholas II, along with his family, was shot. At the time of 1916, Grigory Rasputin became the most influential person in the country. Not only did he have influence over the royal family, but he also interfered in state affairs. The Russian aristocracy hated him. Many believed that he was destroying the empire and that the Tsar and Empress trusted him too much. Rumors swirled around that he was working for the Germans, corrupting high society and secretly ruling the country. Patience ran out with a group of conspirators led by Prince Felix Yusupov. He was joined by other nobles and even officers. They decided to get rid of Rasputin at any cost. On the night of December 16th to 17th, 1916, Prince Yusupov invited Rasputin in his palace. In the basement for him set a table with wine and cakes. Everything was poisoned with a lethal dose of cyanide. This amount would be enough to kill 5 people. Rasputin ate a few poisoned cakes, drank them with wine, and nothing happened. He sat calmly, joking, and felt great. The conspirators panicked. Then Yusupov took a revolver and shot Rasputin in the chest. He fell. It seemed to be over. But when Yusupov returned to check the body, something terrible happened. Rasputin suddenly opened his eyes, jumped to his feet, and grabbed the prince by the throat. In a panic, the killer started shooting at him again. In Rasputin fired several bullets, but he still tried to escape. He was finished with a blow to the head and thrown into the icy water of the river. To this day, no one can explain exactly how Rasputin survived the poison and several shots. But there are several theories. One, the poison was too old. Perhaps the cyanide had lost its properties. Two, he was insensitive to pain, a rare phenomenon that could allow him to move even after being wounded. And the third theory, supernatural abilities. There are still people who believe that Rasputin did have mystical powers. 2 days after the murder, Rasputin's body was pulled out of the water. The autopsy showed that he died not from bullets and not from poison. He drowned. That is, he was still alive when he was thrown into the river. Later, to prevent his grave becoming a place of worship, his body was secretly burned. But even here, there was a frightening incident. During the burning, the corpse suddenly sat up as if it had come to life. Scientists explain that burning causes the tendons to contract so the body can move. But in those days, it looked like a real curse. Rasputin died, but his death only increased the mystique around his name. However, the conspirators were wrong. They thought that by killing him, they would save the empire. But it took only 2 months, and the Russian Empire began to crumble. About Rasputin told terrible stories during his lifetime. After his death, the rumors became even more incredible. But then one question remains. Why, after his death, Russia literally collapsed? Perhaps the answer lies deeper than we realize. And what do you think about it? Write in the comments.